year 399 BC, in the city of Athens, a city admired for its beauty, its art, its ideas, its freedom, a man was condemned to die. Not for treason, not for theft, not for violence, but for asking questions. His name was Socrates. He was not a general. He commanded no army. He held no office. He wrote no books. Yet his words unsettled an empire. He walked the streets of Athens, barefoot, unarmed, and unafraid. And he asked questions that power could not answer. What is justice? What is virtue? What makes a life worth living? Athens believed itself wise. Socrates believed it was mistaken. He warned the city gently, then persistently, then openly, that intelligence without virtue is not wisdom, that persuasion without truth is corruption, and that a society unwilling to examine itself is already in decline. Before his death, he left Athens with a final warning, a sentence history would never forget. The unexamined life is not worth living. Athens heard the words, but it did not hear the warning. The court believed that by silencing his voice, Athens would preserve its order, its traditions, and its power. They believed the problem was the man. History would prove the problem was the city. For when Athens executed Socrates, it did not merely kill a philosopher. It rejected a mirror held up to its own soul. This is not just the story of one man's death. It is the story of a civilization that chose comfort over truth, applause over wisdom, power over virtue, and began a decline it did not yet recognize, but could no longer prevent. Athens did not believe itself ordinary. It believed itself exceptional. A city at the center of the world, a city where democracy was born, where citizens ruled themselves, where speech was free and ideas flowed without restraint. Its temples rose in marble and light. Its theaters echoed with tragedy and truth. Its philosophers debated beneath open skies, and its poets gave voice to the soul of man. To Athens, history had reached its peak. The Persian Wars were over. The invader had been defeated. The seas belonged to Athens. Its navy ruled the Aegean. Its allies paid tribute. Its treasury overflowed. And with power came confidence. With confidence came certainty. Athens believed its success was proof of its wisdom. But prosperity carries a quiet danger. It convinces a society that it has arrived, that there is nothing left to learn, that victory is permanent. In Athens, public opinion became supreme. The crowd decided what was right. The vote decided what was true, and applause replaced reflection. In such a city, Socrates did not appear heroic. He appeared inconvenient. He did not praise democracy. He questioned it. He did not celebrate success. He examined its cost. He warned that a city could master the world and still fail to master itself, that freedom without discipline becomes license, that equality without virtue leads to chaos, and that a people who stop asking what is good soon stop being good. Athens did not silence Socrates at first. It tolerated him. It laughed at him. It mocked him. But it did not listen. Because Athens was strong, and strong societies rarely believe they are in danger. Yet it was here, at the height of its glory, that the seeds of decline were already taking root. Athens believed itself intelligent. It celebrated cleverness. It rewarded eloquence, and it admired success. But Socrates saw a deeper problem. The city valued knowledge, but it did not value wisdom. He watched young men learn how to speak, but not how to think, how to win arguments, but not how to seek truth, how to persuade crowds, but not how to govern themselves. Socrates warned them quietly at first. He reminded them that learning does not begin with answers. It begins with humility. It begins with wonder. Wisdom begins in wonder. But Athens no longer wondered. It assumed. It asserted, it applauded itself. Socrates warned that intelligence without moral grounding becomes dangerous. For knowledge without virtue does not lead to justice, it leads to justification. There is only one good, knowledge, and one evil, ignorance. But ignorance, when armed with eloquence, becomes powerful, and power, without virtue, becomes destructive. In the public square, debate replaced dialogue, victory replaced understanding, and truth became whatever the crowd applauded last. Socrates saw it clearly. When reason fails, character matters most, and when character is weak, words become weapons. When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. Athens did not take offense at first. It laughed. It dismissed him. It called him dangerous not because he lied, but because he refused to flatter. Socrates warned them that a city could train brilliant minds, yet produce corrupted souls. That a society skilled in speech, but empty of virtue, would eventually collapse under the weight of its own cleverness. Athens heard the words, but it believed itself too advanced, too enlightened, too successful to be at risk. And so it continued forward, confident, unexamined, and unaware that it was already drifting toward its undoing. For a time, Athens believed its strength would protect it from consequence. Its walls were strong, its fleet was unmatched, its confidence was absolute. But confidence, when unexamined, becomes pride. And pride, when challenged, demands conflict. War came not as a necessity, but as a choice. Athens entered the Peloponnesian War against Sparta, certain of victory. Its leaders spoke of honor, of destiny, of glory. They appealed to ambition, not restraint, to emotion, not reason. The people listened, they voted, they cheered, and they marched toward war believing success was assured. Socrates watched carefully. He did not celebrate. He did not cheer. He understood something his city refused to see. That desire, when it replaces reason, leads not to greatness but to ruin. As the war dragged on, fear replaced confidence, anger replaced judgment, and ambition replaced wisdom. Then came the decision that revealed Athens most clearly to itself. The Sicilian expedition. A campaign born of pride, not necessity. A gamble driven by dreams of empire, not sober counsel. Voices of caution were ignored. Warnings were mocked. The crowd demanded action, and so the fleet sailed. Thousands of ships, thousands of young men, sent across the sea to claim glory. What returned was silence. The fleet was destroyed. The army was trapped. The survivors were enslaved. Athens had lost not only its soldiers, but its confidence, its restraint, and its moral clarity. Socrates' warning had become reality. When appetite governs decision, reason is silenced. And when reason is silenced, destruction follows. Athens had mastered the sea. It had mastered wealth. It had mastered persuasion. But it had failed to master itself. And from that failure, the fall of Athens was no longer a question of if, but of when. Athens was no longer confident. It was wounded, defeated, afraid. The war had drained its strength. Its empire was shrinking. Its pride was broken. And when a city is afraid, it looks for someone to blame. Athens did not turn to failed generals. It did not turn to reckless leaders. It turned on a man who had warned it all along, Socrates. He was charged with corrupting the youth, with disrespecting the gods. But beneath the accusations lay a deeper fear. He exposed ignorance. He questioned authority. He refused to flatter power. And for a wounded city, truth had become intolerable. At his trial, Socrates did not beg. He did not plead for mercy. He did not appeal to emotion. Instead, he spoke plainly, calmly, without fear. You are wrong if you think that a man who is good for anything ought to calculate the chance of living or dying. He reminded the court that virtue does not bend before danger, that justice is not decided by numbers, that truth does not depend on popularity. When offered exile, he refused. He would not abandon his mission. "I will obey God rather than you." The jury was unsettled, angered, offended. A man who would not submit was more dangerous than one who resisted openly. The verdict was reached: guilty. Socrates listened without protest, without despair, without regret. "You can kill me, but you cannot harm me." He accepted the sentence not as defeat, but as testimony. When the cup of hemlock was brought to him, he did not tremble. He did not curse the city. He did not recant his words. He drank calmly, as one who believed that a life lived in truth cannot be destroyed by death. Athens believed justice had been served, that order had been restored, that the troublemaker was gone. But in that moment, it was not Socrates who stood condemned. It was Athens itself. For a city that kills its conscience does not preserve itself. It destroys what remains of its soul. Socrates was gone. But Athens did not recover. The silence he left behind did not bring peace. It exposed a void. A city that had killed its conscience could no longer hear itself think. The war continued. Resources dwindled. Trust eroded. Fear settled into daily life. Athens remained proud, but it was no longer wise, and wisdom, once lost, is not easily recovered. Across Greece, the city-states watched carefully. Old alliances weakened, rivalries hardened, suspicion replaced cooperation. Each city pursued its own advantage, its own survival, its own glory. Unity became impossible. The Greek world fractured, not suddenly, but steadily. Plato, who had watched his teacher die, understood the lesson clearly. He warned that societies collapse when power is separated from virtue, when rulers seek control instead of wisdom, when desire governs decision instead of reason. Aristotle would later observe that corruption begins quietly. It begins when virtue is no longer taught, when character is no longer cultivated, when excellence is reduced to success alone. Greek culture remained brilliant. Its art endured. Its philosophy deepened. Its ideas spread far beyond its borders. But moral direction was lost. Leadership lacked restraint. Ambition lacked limits. And without a shared vision of the good, the Greek city-states turned against one another. They debated endlessly. They competed fiercely. They exhausted themselves. The lessons Socrates had taught went unheeded. That a society cannot survive on intelligence alone, that cleverness cannot replace character, that freedom without discipline destroys itself. Greece was still admired, still influential, still brilliant, but it was no longer united. And a divided civilization, no matter how gifted, cannot stand forever. While Greece argued, another power was watching. To the north, beyond the city-states, Macedonia was rising. It was not more artistic, it was not more philosophical, but it was unified. Under Philip of Macedon, discipline replaced debate, strategy replaced spectacle, purpose replaced rivalry. The Greek city-states continued to quarrel. They competed for prestige. They revisited old grudges. They exhausted themselves in endless disagreement. They still believed their culture made them superior. They were wrong. Philip reformed his army. He trained it relentlessly. He forged unity where Greece had fragmentation. When he moved south, there was no united resistance. City faced city. Ally doubted ally. Greece fell, not in one battle, but through its divisions. Then came Alexander, brilliant, ambitious, unstoppable. He carried Greek culture across continents, but Greece itself was no longer free. Its cities remained, its temples endured, its ideas lived on, but its independence was gone. The fall of Greece was not the result of foreign strength alone. It was the consequence of internal failure. A society that refused to examine itself had finally been examined by history and found wanting. Socrates did not predict the fall of Greece in dates or battles. He warned of something deeper, the collapse of character. Before the collapse of cities, Athens did not fall when its walls were breached. It fell when truth became inconvenient, when wisdom was mocked, when virtue was replaced by applause. Socrates believed that self-examination was not optional. It was essential for the individual and for the state. He warned that power without virtue corrupts absolutely, that freedom without discipline destroys itself, that intelligence without wisdom leads to ruin. His final words still echo across centuries. The unexamined life is not worth living. Greece ignored the warning. History recorded the result. The question now belongs to us, not whether Socrates was right, but whether we are listening, whether we are willing to examine ourselves before history does it for us.